am Epictetus, the slave who became a philosopher. Can't sleep because your children don't listen? How foolish. The only thing you can change is your own mind.
Have you ever asked yourself this question? Am I choosing a life of slavery for myself right now? Some of you might be surprised by this. After all, we are certainly living in freedom. However, the slavery I am referring to is not about physical shackles. Did you know that the numerous pains and anxieties in our daily lives that wear us down and sometimes lead us to despair can stem from a mental state of slavery? Let's think about it. We get angry about unwanted situations, feel upset by the actions of others that don't go our way, and spend sleepless nights filled with vague worries about the future. If these emotions constantly wield power over us, can we truly say we are free? In ancient Rome, there was a remarkable figure who found an answer to this question. He was born a slave and lived a harsh life, but ultimately became the teacher of a Roman emperor, teaching what true freedom really means. This philosopher was Epictetus. His life was a paradox. While he was at the lowest physical status, he was mentally freer than anyone else. How could someone in the status of a slave become the master of an emperor? The secret lies in his wisdom to distinguish between what can be controlled and what cannot. This wisdom is not confined to ancient Rome 2,000 years ago. For us living in a rapidly changing modern society, especially for those entering the twilight of life who seek to achieve mental freedom and a dignified life amidst the challenges of relationships and emotions, it serves as an invaluable compass. Today, let us explore the revolutionary insights of Epictetus and open the door to true freedom. Now, let's first take a look at the life of Epictetus. He was born around 50 AD in what is now Hierapolis, Turkey, as a slave. Life as a slave in ancient Roman society was truly miserable and painful. His childhood was likely filled with the instability of being a possession of his master, subject to being sold or abused at any moment. Like many others who were shackled and bought and sold in the market, he too was brought to Rome against his will and became a slave to Epaphroditus, who was the secretary of Emperor Nero. However, a ray of light shone in his life, and that was philosophy. Epictetus was granted permission by Epaphroditus to attend the lectures of the then famous Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus. The gaze of Epictetus, a humble slave attending philosophy lectures, must have been more fervent than that of any Roman noble. Even with his body shackled, he immersed himself deeply in the lectures, probing into the fundamental questions of life. In that process, he gained a revolutionary insight that would sustain him for a lifetime. It was about clearly distinguishing what we can and cannot do in our lives. This seemingly simple realization was the only escape route for Epictetus from the life of a slave that felt like a prison. He stated, "What we can control are only our opinions, impulses, desires, aversions, and our own actions and attitudes. However, our bodies, possessions, reputation, and the actions of others are beyond our control." The moment he accepted this truth, a profound sense of liberation must have washed over him. No matter how much his master abused him, inflicted physical pain, and tried to control his future, Epictetus realized that no one could take away his thoughts, emotions, and his responses to that pain. Although he was physically a slave, through this realization, he became the owner of a spirit more free than any emperor. Even in the midst of the bustling slave market of Rome, or in situations where he had to obey his master's commands, he was able to maintain an unwavering inner peace. On the other hand, what about the many nobles in Rome at that time? They seemed to have everything on the surface, but they were trapped by their desires for honor and power, the opinions of others, and a constant sense of anxiety and longing. Although they appeared free, they were actually bound by things beyond their control, living a life of mental slavery. Epictetus emphasized that true freedom begins at this point. He taught that our suffering arises when we try to control what is uncontrollable. In this way, Epictetus's teachings pose the most fundamental question to us: what are we bound by in our lives? Shall we embark on a journey to find the answer to this question? What are we truly bound by in our lives? To find the answer to this question, we need to delve deeper into the figure of Epictetus from ancient Rome. He was not born a free man. His life began as a lowly slave, sold and forced to be led by his master in the bustling markets of Rome. Just imagining it feels suffocating, doesn't it? His life was a continuous cycle of coercion and obedience, with not a single moment of physical freedom granted to him. Yet paradoxically, Epictetus discovered true freedom within the shackles of slavery and achieved the remarkable realization of becoming a teacher to the Roman emperor. The revolutionary wisdom he discovered was about clearly distinguishing between what we can do and what we cannot. It was akin to dividing the elements of life into puppets that I can manipulate and a stage backdrop that I can only observe. Epictetus accepted his status, the commands of his master, the gaze of those around him, and even his physical pain as things beyond his control. And the moment he let go of his attachment and longing for all these uncontrollable aspects, an unwavering sense of peace and freedom emerged within him, much like a lighthouse steadfastly holding its ground amidst a storm. The teachings of Epictetus are not just relevant to the slaves of ancient Rome. They offer invaluable wisdom for all of us living today, especially for those entering the twilight years of life. Among the many concerns that seniors have, let's talk about one that weighs heavily on their minds: the relationship with their children. The successful lives of their children, happy marriages, and filial piety are likely the greatest wishes of parents. However, if we think about it rationally, can we truly control our children's choices and actions, or the direction of their lives? While we understand the love behind it, the reality is that we cannot steer their lives according to our own desires. No matter how much we love our children, they are independent individuals living their own lives. Parents cannot control what career their children choose, whom they marry, or even how often they contact them. Just as we cannot dictate what kind of flower a precious seed will bloom into or when it will burst into blossom, our children's lives unfold in their own unique pace and manner. Yet, we often feel deep disappointment and frustration when our children do not meet our expectations or take a different path than we envisioned. Perhaps this is what Epictetus referred to as a state of mental slavery, trying to control what is uncontrollable and trapping ourselves in a cycle of suffering. One of the most common feelings that arise in the relationship with children is disappointment. You might wonder, why is my child not contacting me? I've done so much for them, yet I get nothing in return. Other people's children are doing well, so why is mine like this? You've likely had these thoughts at least once. Epictetus said, "What disturbs us is not the event itself, but our thoughts about the event." This means that our mindset in accepting what happens is more important than the events occurring externally. The fact that your child is not contacting you is merely a neutral fact. However, when this is interpreted as not receiving the treatment one deserves as a parent, or when the thought arises that the child seems to be ignoring you, the feeling of disappointment can explode. It's like walking down a dark path at night and mistaking the shadow of a branch for a monster. The shadow itself is harmless, but the moment we interpret it as a monster, we become engulfed in fear. Our interpretation of our children's behavior, along with the unconscious desire to control them hidden behind that interpretation, is the root of the feeling of disappointment. When we realize this and learn to manage our own emotions rather than focusing on our children's actions, we can finally achieve emotional independence. This will bring a sense of liberation, as if we are laying down a heavy burden. We will gain the strength to maintain inner peace without being swayed by the actions of others. Isn't true freedom rooted in this emotional independence? When we free our minds from the areas we cannot control, the independence of this emotion shines even brighter in the face of another challenge in life. The changes that come naturally with aging, such as physical decline and illness, can evoke feelings of sadness when we recall our youthful and healthy days, and we may feel disappointment in our bodies that are no longer what they used to be. However, Epictetus classified these physical limitations as part of the realm we cannot control. Ailing and weakening bodies are part of the natural order, an inevitable process that no one can resist. So, should we helplessly succumb to frustration in the face of this inevitable decline? Absolutely not. While the frailty of the body is beyond our control, the attitude we adopt in response to it is entirely up to us. Just as an old pottery piece retains the marks of time, our bodies also bear the traces of aging. However, whether that pottery is left carelessly to break or is cherished and reveals a deeper beauty is entirely our choice. It is at this point that Epictetus emphasized the importance of inner will and dignity. Even if our bodies are not what they used to be, we can still cultivate our lives with grace and look at the world with unwavering eyes. Rather than sighing at the wrinkles on our faces in the mirror, it's important to adopt a mindset that sees them as the wise marks of a life well lived. For instance, even if our movements become difficult, maintaining a neat appearance and not losing our warm smiles during tough times will inspire deep respect from those around us. When our grandchildren visit, imagine not the frail bodies of grandmothers and grandfathers struggling to move, but rather their poised and dignified demeanor as they share the wisdom of life. Their stories will resonate more profoundly, transcending physical frailty and reflecting inner strength and dignity. The true dignity of old age does not come from the vitality of youth or a healthy body. It stems from a strong mental resilience that remains unshaken by the trials of life, steadfastly maintaining one's inner self in any situation. Just as a deeply rooted tree stands firm amidst a storm, we in our old age can face life with an unwavering heart, even within the limitations of our bodies. This attitude not only restores our self-esteem but also provides profound inspiration and impact to those around us. As our bodies weaken, we can cultivate our inner strength even more, preserving our dignity until the very last moments of our lives. Ultimately, on the grand stage of life, we are merely performing the roles assigned to us. Epictetus stated that while we cannot change the script of this play, we can decide how to approach the roles we have been given. When we let go of all attachments and regrets about what we cannot control and focus solely on our own will and attitude, we finally experience true mental freedom. It is a moment of overwhelming liberation, as if we have shed heavy shackles and are running across vast fields. This is the ultimate reason why Epictetus could be freer as a slave than a Roman emperor. He was not bound by uncontrollable factors such as his status, physical pain, or the opinions of others. Instead, he focused all his energy on the controllable areas of his mindset, judgment, and actions. This profound realization offers us powerful hope. Even amidst the numerous challenges that come with aging, we can aspire to be the true masters of our lives and create a dignified old age. When we accept the truth that the only things we can control are our own will and attitude, we can finally attain true freedom along with a noble and dignified life in our later years. In today's rapidly changing and complex society, many individuals entering old age are suffering from anxiety and a sense of loss. The wisdom of Epictetus serves as an invaluable source of comfort and a practical compass for life. It encourages us to let go of our obsession with what we cannot control and to focus on what truly matters within ourselves. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Your support means a lot to me. I will share more useful information in the next video. Thank you.